Welcome to Billy's Books. I'm going to do another Erik Larson book. This one is called The Splendid and the Vile. It's a World War II book. So I'm standing in front of a howitzer that may be from World War I or World War II. My friend Mike says, well, even if it's from World War I, they probably would have used it in World War II. You're not going to throw away a perfectly good howitzer. So that's my rationalization. It's completely unlabeled, so I don't know. There's no marking or anything about this howitzer. Anyway, this is, as you know, we've done some other Erik Larson books. This one's the newest. It's all about the Battle of Britain. And it's basically the Battle of Britain, which is the battle over the air when Germany was bombing Britain and Britain was defending itself through anti-aircraft and the RAF, which is the Royal Air Force. It was the idea was that the Germans would bomb the crap out of England until they surrendered. And Hitler really wanted them to surrender because, you know, the English are like the Germans. You know, they're kind of super racist. We have no qualms. So, you know, they kind of, by defending France, they kind of asked for it. You know, they kind of asked for it. You know, if we invade you and you defend yourselves, well, you're kind of asking for it, aren't you? Apparently, Goebbels turned the UK not surrendering. They decided that was a war crime, not surrendering to them in their invasion. I love that. Churchill would go out among the people and the rubble and just see what was going on, and you know, he was afraid that they'd hate him for for not defending them well enough. But he'd get there. They would always love him. So he'd go out there into the rubble while the fires are still burning around them, and they'd go, "When are we gonna bomb Berlin, Winnie?" And he would say, "You leave that to me." The Queen later on was known for having said, "I'm glad we've been bombed. It makes me feel I can look the East End in the face." So personalized her as well, because she also got bombed. They tried really hard when they bombed London. They tried really hard to kill the important people, such as the Prime Minister and the King and Queen, and lots of other members of Parliament and ministers. So that was lots of fun. Churchill, there's no capitulation for him. He's stubborn as hell, and he's pissing off Hitler because Hitler wants them to give up. And if it weren't for just that damn Churchill, they'd already have given up by now. And they've got this wrong thinking process that if they just keep bombing England that they'll give up, but that's not the way it works, because as you know, the English are special people and they just get more stubborn and stiff upper-lipped if all that happens. So they don't do that way. And of course, Churchill does some great speeches. He kept England defending against the Germans solely when the rest of Europe had already fallen. UK was standing alone, and his motive was, he basically was like, we can stand as long as we can, but we can't stand forever, so we really need American help. Meanwhile, America was isolationist, and even though Roosevelt was sympathetic, he didn't have the support in Congress for a while to do that. So they had to sort of work around it. So after France had surrendered, Churchill really was concerned about the Germans acquiring the French Navy and all their ships. So he was like, can we have your Navy before you give it up? And of course, when the French surrendered, you know, Hitler promised, oh, I won't use your Navy. We won't take your ships, but of course nobody believed him. So anyway, but the French government, because there was the whole Vichy government, we assume, when the English admiral tried to talk to the French admiral and say, can we have your ships now? He was like, absolutely not, we will defend them, which is really frustrating. And Churchill was like, you sure you don't want to just give it to us, because we're going to attack if you don't, because the Germans really can't have all those boats. The French did not give it to them. So they eventually had to go in, and very sadly for everybody involved, the English had to go and sink some French boats in a bay. It was very sad, and a lot of French died. Winston Churchill kept sending Roosevelt these different updates about stuff, and he had to walk the line between we're losing, we need your help badly, and we're strong and we're tough. Because if we were losing, then the U.S. might say, oh, screw it, we're not going to help you. And if they were too strong, then they would say, oh, well, you don't need our help. And of course they needed our help. And of course, Churchill had to walk that line also by saying, well, if you can't join us in the war, can you at least send us some supplies? You've got a whole bunch of really old destroyers, which you're just going to be sinking anyway, or turning to scrap. Can we have those 50 destroyers? They might really help defend the channel. Can we arrange it as a trade? No, you can't arrange it as a trade. And so they tried to do it was like, well, we're giving them one thing and we're giving another back, and of course they're completely unrelated, and they just had to do through all these sort of political and rhetorical maneuverings to make it seem legitimate. Eventually, after a long period of time, they eventually got those destroyers. The same way that Churchill had to walk the line between we're winning, we're losing, FDR had to walk the line with Congress about are we selling, are we trading, are we neutral, and all that nonsense, which made it really difficult because officially they were neutral. Goebbels, who was the guy in charge of all the propaganda, for some reason Germany got a bad name when they attacked all of Europe and started killing Jews. So his logic was, oh well, since United States and the rest of the world already sees us as anti-Semitic, we might as well let the crime fit the punishment and just remove all the Jews, just get rid of them all. Maybe take them to camp somewhere, and even if they stay in town, we'll take all their rights so they can't even go into the public spaces. Yeah, we might as well do that, since the rest of the world knows we're full of hate, we might as well be even more hateful. The German logic in the first half of the 20th century is really remarkable. They're just, in World War I and World War II, they're like, we attack you, and if you defend yourself, how dare you? That's bad of you to defend yourself. Oh, we attacked all of Europe, and now Europe is against us. Oh, we're victims. That kind of nonsense. It's just remarkable. And later on, Hitler wanted to, he wanted UK to surrender, but they wouldn't. And they kept on bombing the UK, and they kept on not surrendering. Pissed him off, so much so they couldn't do it by winter. And Hitler was like, well, oh crap, because even though we have a non-aggression act with Russia, or the Soviet Union, I have a feeling they're going to attack us anyway. And the reason he wanted the UK to surrender so bad was so that America and the USSR wouldn't join them as allies. So he was like, crap, the UK isn't surrendering. And even though I told myself, don't bomb the UK, now I'm bombing the UK. Don't bomb London, and now I'm bombing London. And I really don't, and the lesson learned from World War I, don't have a two-front war. He's like, okay, I can't crack that British nut, so I guess we will attack the USSR. And you know how that went. Oopsie poopsie. Don't attack the Russians. It's just a bad idea. No one succeeds. It's always a failure. Do not attack Russia. Do not attack Russia. You'll regret it. A bomber's moon was a full moon where basically the bombers flying over England could see everything because it was almost daylight because they were so far north, and everything was so crisp in the fall that it was great visibility. So they always dreaded that. Bomber's moon brought along siren stomach because the Battle of Britain was a long thing, and they just kept bombing the crap out of the UK for months and months and months, and everyone got really stressed. For some strange reason, I get really stressed out. Two more passages. That Saturday, Hitler's deputy, Rudolf Hess, once again traveled to the Messerschmitt Works airfield at Augsburg, accompanied by a driver, a police detective, and one of his adjutants, Karl-Heinz Pinch. Hess gave Pinch 2 letters and instructed him to open one of them after he had been gone for 4 hours. Pinch waited the 4 hours and threw in an additional 15 minutes just to be safe, then opened the letter. He was stunned. Hess, he read, was on his way to England to try to bring about a peace agreement. Pinch told the detective and the driver about what he had just read. They were discussing it, no doubt with great anxiety for their own lives and futures, when Hess's fighter returned to the airport. He had been unable to find a radio signal necessary for keeping the plane on course. Hess and the others drove back to Munich. The Brits bombed Berlin, so the Germans who had been bombing London before got really mad because how dare you bomb after we bombed? So they bombed. One night they really, really, really bombed London in a way that was shocking, way beyond the previous times. And since this is all about life on the ground, there's a diary entry from some lady. I drew back the curtains on a day of sunny loveliness and perfect peace, she wrote. The apple trees in the garden were pink dotted against the luscious, thick-piled whiteness of the pear blossom. The sky was warmly blue,
Birds were chirruping in the streets, and there was a gentle Sunday morning quietness over everything. Impossible to believe that last night, from this very same window, everything should have been savagely red, with fire glow and smoke, and deafening with an inferno of noise. So night turns to day. If you can't do, review.